Will do. So the budget that you proposed yesterday included a $4.9 billion pension payment. That's about $1 billion more, or more than $1 billion more than it was last year and the year before. It was also suggested yesterday that you might, or that you should skip all or part of that pension payment. Do you view the $4.9 billion number as negotiable? And if so, what's the minimum payment that you would agree to? Separately, how much time are you spending each week as chairman of the Democratic Governors Association? And do you have any plans?
That's an unrelated question, right?
I'm sorry?
Unrelated to the pension payment?
Yes.
Okay.
And how much, or do you have any plans between now and November 3rd to go and campaign for Democratic gubernatorial candidates? And again, separately, have you watched any of the Republican National Convention? And as a former ambassador, do you believe that it was appropriate for Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to address the convention from Jerusalem, where he was on official business?
You have certainly picked 4 very diverse questions. I'll do the back 3, and I'm glad you asked about the pension payments. I'll do that last if it's okay. I spend typically, and it's entirely phone or Zoom, a few hours a week for the DGA, and it's typically raising money, but it is, in fact, I just had a note come into me on something specific related to that, and in some cases it's going over races and allocating that money, but it's more the former than the latter, but it's not a lot of hours. It's 2 or 3 hours a week probably at this point. I have not watched any of the, I've seen a couple highlights. I've not watched any of the Republican convention. I've heard some stories, but I've not watched any of it. If I can, I will try to watch the president's speech, which I guess is tomorrow night. I think it's what the Secretary of State, has he already done this, or is this tonight?
It was last night.
Was it last night?
Yeah.
Completely inappropriate. Completely inappropriate. I mean, there's something called the Hatch Act, which is clear as a bell in terms of government folks getting involved in political activities. And that's especially, I think, true for the diplomats and the members of the State Department, never mind its leader. Completely inappropriate. I don't even know what he said, but the notion that that's what he's doing is just completely inappropriate. So, if the pension payment in the budget is $4.9 billion, then the minimum amount that I'm prepared to make in the final deal is $4.9 billion, period. There's no negotiating room. And it is $1 billion more, but about 300 million of that billion is an actuarial true-up that gets done every few years. So the actual increase, and I think you know this, is about, the year over year is about a $700-ish million payment with another $300 million true-up, and we chose to take that pain right now. We could have spread that out over a few years, but I don't even want to go near that. So it was suggested, I think your colleague interviewed, I'm not saying this for a political reason, but Jack Ciattarelli was, I mean, hello? At every single level, that is incredibly dumb. That's exactly what got us into the mess that we're in today that I got elected to fix. When in doubt, let's figure out how to not make the pension payment and then kick the can down the road, which, by the way, guess what? That's more borrowing at very high rates. I'm not wild about borrowing, but the borrowing we're doing that we announced yesterday is probably 2% interest rate. That's about as good as it's ever going to get. Never mind the beneficiaries of the payments from the pension fund who have done their side of the bargain every single step of the way to only be let down by the state yet again. I mean, this is classic old way of doing things in this town that got us into the mess that we're in, that I got elected to fix. I'm going to be with the rating agencies tomorrow. If all of what I've said isn't enough, they view it literally almost, I wouldn't say pari passu, but virtually pari passu with a debt obligation, almost as a legal matter, which is why we have made, every year we've been here, the painful And trust me, it's painful. We are now going to be we're now 80% of the way, assuming we get this all over the goal line, to getting ultimately to the point where we don't have to increase it every year. It stays there, and ultimately over time starts to go down. So I think it is, I can't even believe people are raising it. It's, the house is on fire. How did it start? Let's go back to figuring out what we did to start the fire and do it again. It makes literally no sense.